Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So boy, oh boy, do I have quite the week planned. First off, I need to finish How to Succeed in Witchcraft so that I can move on to Stellar Loon. It's in the living room on my bookshelf where I keep the books that I've hauled in the last quarter. I purposely have not moved it in here because I feel if I stare at it, I just won't get any reading done because I'll be too busy staring at, well, the book I want to read as opposed to the book I need to read. As for other reading plans, once I get done with Stellar Loon, I have so many options, it's not even funny. So I'm going to flip you around here. See if I can do this. That is my TBR. That is what is left of the books I would like to read in the month of November. I have no idea if that's even all of them. So, yeah. I think outside of Locklands, I'm going to focus on this stack because those are basically all sequels. And I have the Final Book Support Group, so I'm going to be focusing on sequels for that. So I kind of want to read this one, which is a sequel technically. Well, not technically, it is a sequel. But I can't read these until I read that, so I'm hoping to get through the rest of my Historathon TBR. That's kind of the goal for this week, is to finish that so that I can then focus on all of the sequels. So what is on that stack that is sequels is I have books 1, 2, and 3 in the second arc of 6 of the Survivor series. I have books 3 and 4 of the Seeker series, and 1 and 2 is Across the Room, which I would need to read before I could read 3 and 4 of the second arc of 6 of Seekers, which I'm hoping to get to. I have Defend the Dawn, which is the sequel to Defy the Night. I have Amari and the Great Game, which is the second book in the Supernatural Investigation series. And I have An Echo of Things to Come, which is the second book in the Lycanis trilogy. And Blue Crown, which is the third book in the Green Glass House series. So, I mean, well, and Locklands, which is the third book in that trilogy. So I have all of the sequels over there that I could read. I could literally turn it into an Aaron Hunter vlog with the amount of sequels I have for that. Just that, because I have 4 Seekers, 3 Survivors, and then I have a Aaron Hunter, they're all Aaron Hunter, Warriors novella that I would need to read to finish my Once Upon a Readathon TBR. I mean, granted, I would have to finish Stellar Loon and Lady Rights Are Wrong first, because that's on my last step. But I could do it if I really, really wanted to. So, I don't know. This week is just going to be trying to read as many books as I can, and I know I will get through Stellar Loon so quickly once I pick it up. So my goal for tonight is going to be to finish this. I may even start Stellar Loon, because Lord knows I'm not going to bed anytime soon. My sleep schedule is all messed up. I go to bed somewhere between 5 and 7 a.m., and then I get up around 3. No idea how I'm supposed to switch myself back. But alas, it is what it is. So, yeah. I think I'm going to go read How to Succeed in Witchcraft, because the sooner I start reading that, the sooner I can finish that, and the sooner I can get to Stellar Loon. And I will check back in, I think, when I have something to say about Stellar Loon. And I don't know whether I will set it down to check in or whether I will just wait till the end. But I cannot wait to read that book. I really, really can't. That's the main goal. If that is the only book I get through in the next 7 days, I don't care as long as I read Stellar Loon, because I need to read it. I need to read it. I need to know what happens next. So, yeah. I gotta go read How to Succeed in Witchcraft so I can get to the book I want to get to. Wish me luck, everyone. So it is now Monday. It's been an entire week, and I have not filmed anything. It was a very, 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 very bad brain week, and I just did not want to hear my own voice, see my own face, or be on camera. It also being a bad brain week meant that I didn't read as much. On top of that, I had a pay-per-view on Saturday evening, so from 7 to midnight, I was watching wrestling, which I had a great time doing. I thought it was a brilliant show. I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, my focus was elsewhere, and that was an entire chunk of 5 hours where there was no filming. So, I'm sorry that you're getting kind of a wrap-up at the end of this vlog. I had planned to check in early in the week, and I could not bring myself to do it. And I've had vlog 57 edited since Monday morning. Like, I got up, edited it, I think Monday. I might have even done it Sunday, Monday before I went to bed. So, I filmed the clip, and then I immediately edited it, and that meant the video's been edited. I just haven't had it in me to watch it back. And it's just, like I said, been a very, very bad brain week. But I'm feeling a bit better. I'm feeling a bit more on track. So, I thought I would update you on everything I read this week. So last time I talked to you, I was reading How to Succeed in Witchcraft, and was struggling with it, not because the book was bad, but because the only book I cared about at that point was this one. We'll get to that. And we're following a girl named Shay, who is hoping to get into this magical licensing program and gets told by the head of the theater department that if she tries out in the musical, it'll look good for her. Keep in mind that this Mr. B is also part of the foundation that hands out the scholarship. And her rival end up in this musical. And they're really the only bit of diversity this cast kind of has. And she's kind of feeling out of place and uncomfortable. And Mr. B does not do anything to help that. He definitely makes some advances on her that are a little more familiar than she would like. And she kind of has to decide what she's going to do about it because he is integral to her getting the scholarship for the licensing program. And if she doesn't get the scholarship, she doesn't know she's going to be able to afford to go to the licensing school. And it's very important in their world to get magically licensed. So I'm giving this book 3.75 stars. It was an enjoyable debut. I was reading it for new to me author whose book was a debut. For the Once Upon a Readathon. It had to be a author who only had the one book out. You couldn't just read their debut. You had to read their debut while it was still the only book they had out. And there were lots of things I liked about it. I liked seeing Shay's relationship with her rival and how that developed throughout the book. I liked Shay's relationship with her family. The relationship with Mr. B made me extremely uncomfortable, but I think it was supposed to make me extremely uncomfortable. Given the nature of a teacher kind of preying on a student and having this, manipulation over her, and you kind of wondering along with Shay if that's really what's happening, or if you're just misinterpreting things. And nothing against that, it's just not something I'd want to read about. So I think that's kind of where my issue lies, is why it's getting a 3.75, is not because it's a bad book, but because the content of the book wasn't necessarily aimed for me, and isn't necessarily something that I wanted to read at that time, or really ever. So yeah, I mean, I do really, really, though, like Shay and the magic, and I like the writing enough that if there were to be more books in this series where we follow Shay and we get to see more of Shay's life, then I would definitely be interested, because I like the way the magic works in this book and in this world. And kind of, Shay is very into potions, so I would love to see more of that, potion making and developing her magic and going to this licensing school and trying to get licensed. So I definitely wouldn't say no to reading more from this author in the future. But like I said, there was just a little bit of content that knocked the rating down for me. It probably also didn't help that the only book I wanted to read was Stellar Loon. So this is the 9th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series, and it is a 5-star prediction, so I cannot talk to you about it, because I'm going to save that for that vlog. But I will say, without telling you whether it got 5 stars, that 1, I am so happy to know what has happened next, whether I liked it or not, and 2, How dare she leave us there? I am not happy about the wait I have to endure for book 10. Although I knew that going into book 9 that I was not going to want to wait. So, yeah. Oh well. I will patiently wait for book 10. And that's all I'm going to say about that in here. Just that I read it. This was my book for magic, because I consider everything the elves do with their talents to be magic. And book over 450 pages for the hard mode for the Once Upon a Readathon. So this was a very important book to my path for the Once Upon a Readathon, but I'm not going to say any more about my thoughts and my feelings or my rating here. You'll have to wait for my 5-star prediction wrap-up vlog for that. Then continuing on my Once Upon a Readathon TBR and my Historathon TBR, because this is where they overlapped, I read Lady Rights Are Wrong by Eliza Casey. This is the second book in the Manor Cat mystery series, and I'm giving this one 3.75 stars. For Historathon, I needed to read a book that was set in a different decade than the book I read previously. The last book I read for Historathon, in case you need a refresher, is Catching Falling Stars, and that was during the Blitz in 1941. And this book takes place in the 1910s, I believe. Yeah. It says Autumn 1912 right there on the first page. So this is in the 1910s. And then for the Once Upon a Readathon, I needed a book in a historical setting, so I was absolutely going to pick one of my historical fictions because, well, why wouldn't I? So in this series, we're following Lady Cecilia Bates, who lives at Danbury Hall. And in this one, she's starting to get kind of involved in the suffragette movement. And she meets a leader of a women's suffrage group and takes a liking to her. But shortly thereafter, the woman is found dead at the bottom of a set of stairs. And Lady Cecilia decides she's going to look into this, and does so with the help of her lady's maid Jane and Jane's lovable cat Jack. So I wasn't as into this story as I was the first one. The first one got 4.5 stars and was a 5-star prediction. This one wasn't as good. I think because there was just too much going on and kind of thrown in. And I just didn't connect with the plot the way I did in the first one, but I still did enjoy it, and I will still definitely be continuing on with the series. And I think the book could have used more Jack. I'm a sucker for a cat in a cozy mystery, so if you're going to give me a cat, I want all the cat, and I could have used more cat in this one. So yeah, maybe if it had more cat, it'd have gotten 4 stars, but I like the setting, and I like Cecilia and Jane, and I'm curious as to where their stories are going to go. So at some point, if there is a book 3, I will read it, but I can see this not being one of my favorites in the series. Then, continuing on with Historathon, I picked up We Were Strangers Once by Betsy Carter, and the connecting theme in this one was to read a book whose author's last name starts with the same letter as the author's last name from your previous book. And since I read Eliza Casey, I read Betsy Carter, C's, obviously. And this one follows Egon, who is a Jewish doctor who flees to New York before things get really bad during World War II. And we kind of see him make his way, and we see the people he meets. We have a couple other points of view throughout the book. One of the main ones is, let me see, what's her name? Katrina. And Katrina is the daughter of 2 Irish immigrants who moved to the United States when they were children and then met and had Katrina. And eventually Katrina and Egon cross paths, and we're basically just seeing their lives in New York and what life was like for them. I'm giving this book 3 stars. I just wanted more from it. So basically the book starts, and we meet Egon's parents, and we see how Egon's parents meet, and then we see Egon as a boy, and we see him growing up, and we see him become a doctor, and then eventually he goes to New York. And then just as he's leaving for New York, that's when we meet Katrina, and we start the whole thing over again with seeing Katrina's parents meet, seeing Katrina's life, seeing Katrina grow up, I believe, until we get to the point where Katrina meets Egon. And then we backtrack with Egon again and start to see Egon's life in New York. And I don't know, feel like, let me see. I'm trying to see where we get to the point where Egon and Katrina meet. Page 109. It took 110 pages to get to the point where we were actually seeing Egon's life in New York, and it is billed as a story of seeing Egon settle into the unfamiliar rhythms of Upper Manhattan and kind of feeling adrift and trying to find his place. And so I was expecting this to really be a book about that, and I didn't get it. I will also mention, for those of you who like trigger warnings that do with animals, they're... How do I put this? I mean, it's not really a big spoiler, so I guess I can just say it. But, like, Katrina is big into animals, and she talks about a scene where 2 different times. One is before she's working at the ASPCA, and she's talking about how they would deal with the dogs who didn't get adopted and got put down, and how they would do that back then. And then the second scene would be her working there and having to do it herself. And it's 2 completely different ways, and they're both more descriptive than I needed in how these dogs got put to sleep. Because, like, I understand that it is something that happens. I don't like it. And I know that back then it was definitely something that happens, and we obviously have more humane ways of doing that now than they did then. I did not need the descriptive scenes. If that is something that's going to bother you, I would say pass on this book, because it bothered me and I didn't like it and I didn't want to read it, and it definitely did not help with the very bad brain week that I was having. So yeah, this gets 3 stars for me because I wanted more from it and I didn't get it, but I also didn't hate the book. So yeah, maybe if you want to pick it up and you go into it knowing that it starts with getting a background on Katrina and Egon and then going into life in New York, you'll enjoy it more than I did. But I went into it expecting to see these group of immigrants, because it literally mentions their community and immigrants that were drawn together. And I wanted to see more of what that was like for them and the different walks of life they came from. And I didn't get it. So yeah, it was kind of disappointing. But again, it wasn't a bad book. So then I took a break from the historical fiction to read Blue Crown. So this is the 3rd book in the Green Glass House series, and it is a prequel where we get to see the first inhabitants of Green Glass House, I believe. And I cannot remember if these people are in any way mentioned in the first 2 books, because it's been so long since I read the first 2 books. So we're basically following Lucy Blue Crown, who has grown up on her father's ship, and her father wants to settle her in her house with her stepmom and her half-brother. And she is not happy about it. She does not want to live on land. She feels she's a seafaring gal and just wants to live aboard the ship with her dad. And while she's ashore and trying to settle in, these 2 guys show up and seem to have some interest in her brother in ways that makes her uncomfortable. I'm giving this book 4 stars. I really, really enjoy Kate Milford's writing and the way she put this story together, and the characters that we meet in this, and the familiarity I have with the world, because in the first book, we meet a young boy who lives at Green Glass House, which is this house that we're seeing in this book, I believe. If memory serves, because it felt like very familiar. There were descriptions of certain things that felt familiar. So yeah, I really enjoyed being back in this world, and I really, really like Kate Milford's writing. And she says in her author's note that it's no secret that my books so far all share a world. So she's got other series that are not Green Glass House series that feature characters from here. So I'm like really excited to get to those, because like I said, I really enjoy her writing. I like the way she constructs a story. I got really invested in this one, and Lucy and her brother and her stepmom. And I can definitely see me reading more works by Kate Milford at some point. And obviously I will at some point finish the books that are considered part of the Green Glass House series, because it's a series I want to continue. And then the last book I finished is Fly Girl. So this is another book for Historathon. So the connecting theme to this one was simple. You just had to read a book that had fewer pages than your last book. This book clocked in at 269, and this one was over 300, so easily under the page count. In this one, we're following a young black girl named Ida who is living with her mom and her little brother and her grandfather when Pearl Harbor happens, and her older brother, who's off at school, ends up enlisting, and all Ida has ever wanted to do is fly. She learned to fly with her dad, and it has been her life's dream to fly, but she's black, so she has no idea how she's supposed to accomplish that until her little brother sees an ad for the WASPs, which are the Women Air Force Service Pilots, and they're looking for women who are willing to join and fly planes. And Ida is light-skinned, and she knows the only way she's getting in this program is if she uses her light skin to pass as white. And she has to make that decision. Does she go for it? And she does, obviously, or there'd be no book. And we kind of get to see Ida as she's balancing, this is my dream versus this is kind of my identity, and is all of this worth it? And I'm giving this book 3.5 stars. I wanted more from it, and I think the only fault of it is that it's YA. There's stuff in here that I definitely wouldn't put in a middle grade, but I wanted more. I wanted to know more about the training, and it was kind of glossed over. I wanted to know more about what was going on in the war and the contributions that these women made to the war, and that was glossed over. I wanted to know about the dangers that these women faced and what happened to some of them, both good and bad, and that was kind of glossed over. It was really more focused on Ida and the turmoil that she went through and a handful of relationships that she made. And I think, especially given how much historical fiction I've read lately, that I just really wanted something I could sink my teeth into, and this wasn't it because it's YA. But I still think it's a fantastic book, and I would absolutely recommend it for a YA audience because it is an easier read than, you know, We Were Strangers Once, which focuses on some of the realities of World War II in a Jewish manner. And even though this was another one I wanted something different from, there is stuff there that happens that is not great and probably isn't suitable for YA audiences. What else have I read this month for Historathon? I mean, I read this, but it's cozy mystery, so I don't really count that. I read 2 middle grades. Lost in Our Stars, which was set in the Boer War in the internment camps in Africa, which was insanity. And, like, I wanted something like that. Or, like, again, I wasn't expecting this to deal with, like, the Holocaust and that part of it, because we're talking about women pilots in the United States. But I still would have liked to know more about their training and how hard it was and the things they had to overcome and the obstacles they had to overcome and probably some crappy interactions they had with men who thought that they couldn't do their jobs because they were, you know, women. And I wanted more from it. So, yeah, not a bad book, but not exactly what I was hoping for. And that is all the books I've finished, but I do have 2 I'm in the middle of. So once I got done with that, I picked up Water for Elephants, and this is following a boy named Jacob, who is joining the circus. Basically, he finds out right before he is about to graduate from Cornwall and become a vet that his parents have died in a car accident and he has nothing. And he ends up just walking and finding this train, which happens to be a circus train, and joining the circus, essentially. I'm only like 64 pages in, but it actually starts with, in his 90s, Jacob mentioning some things that went down while he was at the circus, which I think is going to be the climax of the book, and I'm very curious how we get to those events. And I don't think I'm going to say what they are, because I think you should read it for yourself, because I was not expecting it to start where it did. So I'm very, very curious to see how this plays out, and to see if we continue to get scenes of Jacob in his 90s versus Jacob in his 20s. They have 2 different voice actors for that. And it's really, really cool how the voice actors are doing it, because you can hear emotion. They're feeding emotion into their thing. Like, they're actually acting these scenes out. And I thought that was really, really cool and has definitely made me invested in the audiobook. And the connection, in case you were wondering, is main character, different race. So I had a black girl, I got a white guy. So definitely a different race there. I don't know that I'm going to get back to this week because this coming week is the last round this year of the final book support group. So I'm going to be really focused on sequels, but I may because it has definitely piqued my interest and I'm very, very curious about it. So it's off to a good start. And then I've started Locklands. I'm on page 360. So like 2/3? No, yeah, almost 2/3, round 2/3, somewhere in there through the book, because I think it's just shy of 600 pages. This is the third book in the Founders Trilogy, and I'm really, really, really enjoying this. I waited for the audiobook, and I'm glad that I did, because I love the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook for the first two, so I'm glad I have it for the third one as well. I obviously can't say much about what's going on, although I will say it was trippy because I legitimately was like, did I forget something? Because the way the book starts off does not match where the way the second book ended. So it took me a minute to get my bearings because I think there's like a giant time jump. And I was confused for a minute because I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't we end here and now? Why? What? Wait? But once I figured that out, I was all right because I just was not expecting there to have been a time jump. That, or I'm completely misremembering the way book 2 ended, but I don't think so because it wasn't that long ago that I read it. But I see no reason I won't finish this in the next couple of days. So very excited for this. And at the moment, I will tell you it's feeling, I want to say 4.25 star-ish, with the potential to go up or down depending on what happens. So we shall see. But yeah, that's everything I've read this week. Legitimately everything I've read this week, which, as I'm looking at it, is a lot more than I thought I got to. It felt like a very slow reading week, and seeing it all like this, it definitely wasn't. So thumbs up for that. I'm sorry I didn't check in more. It was just a really, really bad week, and hopefully the coming one is better because I have just all the sequels that I want to read. So yeah, that's it for this week's vlog. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me purple emojis. I saw this piece of purple paper. I make my series to continue jar out of these, and I just saw the purple piece of paper, and it just happens to be my favorite color. So leave me purple emojis in honor of that. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!